From the banks of the Colorado River in Lake Mead to the homes and businesses in Southern Nevada, welcome to Water Smarts, the podcast pumping from the heart of Las Vegas, where we engage with the experts who keep the water flowing throughout Southern Nevada. I'm Bronson Mack.
And I'm Zuelke. From how we treat it, deliver it, use it, protect it, and conserve it, the Water Smarts podcast is all about water in Southern Nevada. We hope to make you a little smarter about the one thing that keeps us all connected: water.
Hey, Crystal, how you doing today?
Well, I'm not going to talk about the weather just yet. We just ended election season, so can we all just have a collective sigh?
Yes.
The mail is going to stop. At least we won't get so much mail.
Crystal, what am I going to do with my recycle bin? I don't have things to put into my recycle bin now.
I don't know. I always have stuff in my recycling bin, but I am, for one, thankful that we're past that. Now we're going into holiday season, which can be somewhat stressful too.
Absolutely. But at the same time, with Thanksgiving around the corner, greatest holiday ever invented, by the way. Oh, absolutely. Give me that turkey and family all day long. But the other thing about this time of year is, winter watering is in effect. So we've all changed our sprinkler clocks to go to 1 day a week. And then on top of that, there's water demand decreases that happen this time of year. Just part of the natural cycle that we see with water use. Water demands are highest in the summer for obvious reasons, and then they're lowest in the winter for obvious reasons. And when they are low in the winter, that gives us a good opportunity to make some repairs on our infrastructure, do some work at our treatment plants so that we can continue to meet the needs of the community, not just today, but well into the future. And today, to talk to us about how the Southern Nevada Water Authority and its member agencies are working to ensure a safe and reliable water system and the investment that goes into protecting our water infrastructure, we have Doa Ross, Deputy General Manager of Engineering for the Southern Nevada Water Authority. Doa, welcome back to the Water Smarts podcast.
Thanks so much for having me. It's great to be back, Bronson.
Well, we are really happy to have you here. You actually appeared on the very first Water Smarts podcast, and we talked a little bit about infrastructure at that point. Believe it or not, that was a couple of years ago, so we're happy to have you back to talk about infrastructure. Once again, it is so critical to our community. And when you were on the first time, Doa, you talked a little bit about how Southern Nevada really is a relatively young community. And our water infrastructure is relatively new, especially when you consider communities on the East Coast that are well over a century that they've had their water infrastructure in place. Ours is obviously a little bit younger than that. But even still, it's important that we continue to make investments in our infrastructure and maintain and update the water system so that the public knows that every time they turn on the tap, we're going to meet the demand. But can you talk a little bit with our audience about those investments that we make in our community's water infrastructure?
Sure. And as young as we are, there are still parts of our system. We have some pipes in our system that are approaching 75 years old. So we're young when you compare us to, Boston or New York, but we're getting up there in age. And with that comes some needs for maintaining our infrastructure. And we really do focus in three main areas. Number one, obviously new water facilities that are needed to meet the demands of our existing community as well as the expansion of our community. And when I say existing, sometimes existing buildings might want to add maybe a new restaurant or do some redevelopment. And that often comes with some additional fire flow requirements that were never contemplated back, say, in the 50s or 60s. And so our infrastructure is necessary to be able to meet those demands, which are additional beyond just domestic use. We also have a lot to do with water resources and conservation, including all that we do with our Water Smart Landscape rebate program, as well as other areas of conservation. And then, of course, we have system maintenance and upgrades. And our water system serves all areas of this valley, not just the new. We serve a lot of existing customers, many people who have lived here for decades, and sometimes they may be even on their second or third generation of people living in this community. And all of that, we need to keep it working efficiently. So we look for areas to be more efficient, to utilize innovation, work smarter, to keep our infrastructure intact and ready and available for this community at all times.
And we recently saw a couple historic storms on the East Coast. And those are things that we don't experience here in Southern Nevada. We don't have to worry about tornadoes and major floods and hurricanes. But we do get a few minor earthquakes once in a while. But really, our natural threats come from drought. And we've been dealing with that for more than 20 years now, probably closer to 25. Doa, what are some of the investments that we've made to respond to the drought and to prepare our community for the future?
Well, I'd say probably first and foremost, the number one most important thing for this community is the fact that, and we are very rare when you look at us compared to many other places throughout the United States. Number one, we're the only one within the Colorado River Basin that is situated within the Colorado River Basin. We use the water within the Colorado River Basin, and we return the water to the Colorado River. And that's really because of our great partnership with our wastewater treatment facilities in town. These wastewater treatment facilities receive all of the water that's used indoors if you're connected to the sewer system. So think of all the hotels, all those hotel rooms, everybody's taking a shower. You at your house, you might be doing laundry, dishes, whatever it may be. All of that water is making its way back to these very high class, very sophisticated wastewater treatment centers. And they are treating that water to near drinking water standards. And they disperse that water back to the Las Vegas Wash. Now, if you've ever been out to the Las Vegas Wash, you've seen a series of wetlands and weir structures. That entire system is truly Mother Nature's kidney. It is further cleaning that water and making its way back to Lake Mead. And every single drop of water that makes its way back is another drop of water we get to take back out. So that cycle that we have within Southern Nevada is so critically important to us through the drought. Beyond that, infrastructure, and that's really my bailiwick over here in engineering, the third intake as well as the low lake level pumping station. Now we at Southern Nevada, we modeled the climate change and unfortunately the drought, the trends that we were going in. We saw Lake Mead's elevation would probably drop to a point where we might lose intake number 1 and intake number 2. That was all we had to be able to access water from the Colorado River for Southern Nevada. So we made the decision many, many years ago to go ahead and construct that third intake at the lowest point within Lake Mead, as well as the low lake level pumping station. And together, those two projects ensure that Southern Nevada has the most secure access to our water within the Colorado River, even if the lake drops to a point where water can no longer flow through Hoover Dam. And in that case, California, Arizona, and the country of Mexico don't get access to Colorado River. We do, though. So that was a major important piece for our system. And then, of course, those investments have made this community so protected against climate change and drought. Now, we all have to do our part with conservation, of course, but those pieces that we've put together between return flow credits and the infrastructure at that third intake and low lake level pumping station have made us truly secure, and that's our fight against what is our greatest threat, which is drought.
Yeah, Doa, I don't think that we can really stress just how important those two facilities, intake number 3 and the low lake level pumping station, to secure our water supply. I mean, just as you had indicated, prior to this deep water intake and pumping station, we relied on 2 other intakes in Lake Mead. They were at a higher elevation in the lake, not as deep down underneath the lake as intake number 3 is. And really the threat of Lake Mead falling too low for those 2 intakes and pumping facilities to be able to operate, it wasn't just an illusion. It really was a reality. And in fact, it was I think it was April of 2022, when water levels in Lake Mead dipped below intake number 1, that highest intake in Lake Mead. And fortunately, with the completion of intake number 3 and the low lake level pumping station being there, being ready to go, we were able to make that switch and that conversion without disrupting water deliveries to the community. So you talk about investing in those kinds of projects. It is a big community benefit. And we're also investing in another project right now, which is the Horizon Lateral. And that's going to provide some additional redundancy and service to those customers that are kind of in the southwest part of our valley and even just the southern part of our valley. Can you just talk a little bit about the significance of the Horizon Lateral and kind of give our listeners the lay of the land with that?
Sure, absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's all of the southern part of the valley. Really, 40% of our customers in Southern Nevada, and we're talking over 1 million people that live here, are fed through a single feed in the SNWA system called the South Valley Lateral. And that particular pipeline was actually constructed in the 1990s, long before a very large portion of what we consider modern Henderson was actually built out, including even the Las Vegas and Clark County portions down on the south. South Valley Lateral doesn't have a redundant feed to it. It's a standalone dead-end pipe, if you will. Most of our system, whether it's the Las Vegas Valley Water District or SNWA, we like to build redundancy. We like to have the ability to take one section out so that we can repair, maintain, while still delivering water to the rest. Unfortunately, the South Valley Lateral did not have that built. And so the Horizon Lateral project or program, really, as we kind of call it, because it consists of many pieces, will construct a redundant facility to South Valley Lateral. It will allow us to be able to move water back and forth between the two pipes, as well as keeping Henderson and portions of the Las Vegas Valley Water District in service in the event we have to take the South Valley Lateral down, whether it be routine maintenance or, God forbid, an emergency. And in fact, in 2017, we did have a need to have to shut down a portion of the South Valley Lateral to make a repair to it. Fortunately, it was during the winter when our demands are the lowest. Through a partnership, of course, we have a great relationship with City of Henderson and SNWA. We made sure their reservoirs and everything were filled to capacity. We took the South Valley Lateral down and we were able to make the repairs within 10 days. That is not always going to be the case. We were very fortunate that it was a very remote area that we were able to isolate, but we can't always count on something like that. So this Horizon Lateral program is going to build several facilities that will be able to move water back and forth and provide that redundancy for all of that southern portion of the valley. It's really going to be completely duplicative to the South Valley Lateral.
So, people expect utility companies to build facilities to accommodate new development, but the Water Authority and its member agencies also invest in maintaining and replacing facilities throughout the water system. So even though we are a younger system in many sense, we still have to maintain our system. Doa, what are some of the recent projects that are helping to shore up our water system and keep everything in really good working condition?
We have a number of projects that we're working on at SNWA, one of which is really going to duplicate one of our largest pumping stations within the valley. And it's critical to be able to deliver water kind of Central Valley, if you will. Think of the Strip, portions of North Las Vegas, portions of Clark County and City of Las Vegas, a very big hub. So that particular pumping station is going to really give 100% duplication and redundancy because that original pumping station is reaching end of year life kind of thing that we want to be able to replace some of the critical infrastructure inside of there, do upgrades to the electrical equipment, all of those things that are necessary for regular routine maintenance. And so thinking ahead, we're building this facility before we have any sort of major outage needs. And we want to have this in place in time. And we have some deadlines on our own to be able to provide that so that we don't have any sort of outages to major portions of our community. It's really important to do things like that. Within the Las Vegas Valley Water District, as I mentioned, some of our pipes are reaching 75 years old. We actually had one pipe within Flamingo Road between Las Vegas Boulevard and Koval Lane, kind of right there in the center of the resort corridor. And that particular pipe, we actually utilized some leak detection equipment to really kind of assess the pipe, and we detected a couple leaks on it. Now, we know that pipe was built in the 60s, so we were sort of pushing its age a little bit. But we were able to get in and replace almost 3,000 feet of that pipe in between Formula One and Formula One. So we were able to get in there very quickly, get that replaced. And that particular piece of pipe, while we do have redundancy throughout the resort corridor, is necessary to keep the maximum fire flow available to all of the resorts. So it is a very critical piece of pipe, and we were able to get that replaced as well. And then all of our rehabilitations that we're doing, we even have a piece of pipe from the 1950s that's in Oakey Boulevard between Rancho and Cashman Drive, kind of an older part of town, lots of homes around there, and they depend on that pipe. We detected a couple leaks within there, and we're actually utilizing a couple pieces of technology. Few sections will replace the pipe, but the majority of it, We're utilizing a really great slip lining material that we have had great success with in lining existing pipes throughout our system. It's like a Kevlar lined pipe, and it comes from Germany, and it's a fantastic piece because it goes right in and we are right back in service so fast. It is a fantastic, innovative piece of equipment that doesn't allow us to tear up the road like crazy, which we try not to do any chance we get. There's a lot of projects we're working on, but these are just a few I can list.
Doa, quick question there. You brought up two terms, and I just want to make sure those are clear for our audience. You've talked about redundancy quite a bit, and then you mentioned fire flow. Can you just talk a little bit more about redundancy and help our audience understand, like, what does that mean to them? Do we have redundancy in the water systems that serve our homes?
So real briefly, all it means is we put in a series of pipelines that are connected like a grid. So if you live within a subdivision, you have a source of water, even though you might have one pipe in the street directly in front of your house, that pipe is connected to another pipe which goes in one direction and is connected to another pipe which goes in a completely different direction. And those are all connected to separate backbone pipelines. And the reason why we do this is so that in the event we have a main break, let's just say there's a break right at the corner of your entrance of your subdivision. We can shut down that particular segment of pipe, and there's another feed of water coming in, filling up that pipe so that you as a resident, most likely, and I say most likely because there are still few areas within our system that we haven't been able to completely close the loop, but majority of our customers, you will not know that you've had the main shut down because you're getting water fed from a different direction. Water is pressurized and it goes in any direction we want to push it. So for us, redundancy means you have water coming from two different directions in the event we have to shut down a main in any point. Now the fire flow portion, that's important because for every single house, every single apartment building, hotel, even a shopping center, doesn't matter. If there's a structure out there, the fire department has required amount of water at a certain pressure at a certain gallon per minute flow requirement. These are dictated by the fire codes in the local jurisdictions. Every single development has a required fire flow. So a typical fire hydrant in front of your house is required to flow 1,500 gallons per minute and never have less than a 20 pound per square inch drop in pressure. So we have to maintain the amount of water and pressure within our pipe so that the fire department knows without even asking that when they roll up to a fire hydrant, they can connect and they are getting exactly what they need. And then the spacing of those hydrants is dependent upon the fire department. So when we say fire flow, we mean the required gallon per minute flow at a certain pressure that the fire department has dictated so that they can very confidently pull up, use that hydrant, and put out a fire.
Perfect. I really appreciate you sharing that with our audience. Sometimes we forget that our water system provides fire protection and what value that brings to our community to protect our homes, protect our businesses, protect our assets. That fire protection element is really important. But hang with me for just a bit more because you brought up another thing I want to touch on, and you talked a little bit about water pressure. I think most people understand that it takes a lot of energy, it takes a lot of power, a lot of electricity to be able to move water uphill, especially from Lake Mead. And we are moving that water to high elevations within our valley, upwards of 3,000 feet in elevation. And once that water gets uphill, then it gravity feeds back down to customers from reservoirs. And that's what creates water pressure. So can you just help our audience understand just a little bit more detail on water pressure? Because I can tell you, when I started understanding water pressure and the way our system works, it really kind of blew me away. So can you just inform our audience on that?
Sure. It's actually pretty simple when you look at it. Our valley, if you looked at it, we're sort of shaped a little bit like a bowl in a way. And for this very reason, you don't see water towers like you might see if you go to the Midwest. And the Midwest is very flat in general. They don't have a change in elevation. So they need to pump water to a tower to get pressured so that they can drop it down to people. We fortunately have elevation changes, although kind of subtly until you get to maybe Summerlin or Sunrise Mountain. Then you really notice your elevation change. But within our valley, we actually do have elevation changes. So every roughly 150 feet in elevation change, and that might be over a long span of area, say around UNLV, that central part of town, it takes a long time till you get to 150 feet elevation. Versus in, say, Summerlin, you might actually find that from one neighborhood to the next, depending on where you are. But roughly every 150 feet elevation, we have a reservoir at the top. If you are the house or a home or a business that is closest to that reservoir, pressure is the difference between the surface of that reservoir, the water in that reservoir, to where it's coming into your house. We design the location of a reservoir based on the end use houses or businesses where they are, such that we stay within the state requirements of a minimum of 40 pounds of pressure, PSI we call it, a minimum of 40 and a maximum of about 100, 105. We try to stay just below 100 depending on where we are, and a lot of it depends on how the particular developer develops the lot. With that in mind, if you live closer to your reservoir, you have a little bit lower pressure. If you live a little further from your reservoir, you have higher pressures. And then, of course, enter into that plumbing code requirements where they say if you have over a certain pressure, you have to have a pressure reducing valve inside of your garage. You see this funny little pipe that comes out of the wall, goes through this brass thing and back in. That's your builder complying with the plumbing codes inside of the home.
So based on that, and based on the fact that we can see some pressure ranges throughout our community, depending on the elevation of your home, depending on the elevation of that reservoir, does water pressure really impact the indoor plumbing fixtures of a home? In other words, does the water pressure that the water district provide, does that cause leaks in homes?
No, actually, because of the plumbing code requirements, in fact, old plumbing code requirements would say if you have pressures in excess of 100 pounds of pressure, then you're required to put a pressure reducing valve on there. The new plumbing codes that came into effect in the early 2000s says if you have pressures in excess of 80 pounds per inch, then you have to put in a pressure reducing valve. Pretty much almost every home you see these days, generally speaking, anything over about 70 pounds, the builder's putting one in there to protect all of your plumbing. Now, the piece that isn't in any way covered by a pressure reducing valve is what goes between the meter and your house. All of that is rated at a much higher pressure than we're delivering. All that piping that these builders put in for your service line or your landscape piping, all of that's rated for a much higher pressure. So it's not a matter of pressure that would cause a leak. It's what we see all across the valley is it's generally just age. And unfortunately, we're in a warmer, drier climate. So a lot of these materials, especially if they aren't buried very deep, tend to get a little dry and brittle, and they will crack at some point in time. And we find the majority of the leaks are really associated with the age of the home.
So I would just like to say, hi, I was today years old when I learned what a water tower was. What it is, I had no idea. And I'm from the Midwest originally, so I've seen them all over the place.
I'm sorry, Crystal. Have you not seen Ferris Bueller's Day Off? The big Save Ferris, right? That's on the water tower in Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Save Ferris. So just to give you a frame of reference, sometimes it almost looks like a hot air balloon that's sitting on the top of a tower.
I just learned so much in that last few minutes. So turning the conversation back to leaks, there are the obvious leaks a lot of us experience if you're a homeowner, like breaks in your irrigation system. And then there are the ones that are more tricky that can be hidden underground. And sometimes you don't know they're there until it really erupts into a problem or you get a really big water bill. SNWA.com has a lot of videos to help people find and isolate leaks, the most common household leaks on your property. But Doa, can you just give us an idea of some of the leak assistant programs that are now in place in Southern Nevada to help homeowners navigate their property when they get leaks and then help them pay for those problems?
Yeah, absolutely. As a matter of fact, those videos that are kind of a self-help, those are really helpful for you if you want to try and troubleshoot them on your own. But there are times that you get to a point where you say, I'm scratching my head. I've listened and watched all your videos. I just can't find it. I'm at a loss. So that's where SNWA Leak Detection Assistance Program can really help out. We actually have a list of qualified plumbers that have been vetted through us and proven to be able to really be able to find those leaks. And we offer a voucher program that helps to identify those leaks. And that voucher, if you use one of the professionals from that list, covers the first 2 hours of that professional going out to your home and helping you find that leak. And that's a cost of up to $250. The reason for that is because majority of these professionals can find those leaks within 2 hours. And all of that is offered to any member agency within SNWA. You can go straight onto our website and get that voucher information. Now, getting into the leak adjustment programs, some of the municipalities offer different programs. So I'm going to speak a little bit regarding the Las Vegas Valley Water District. We do have a program where if we've notified you, and we are usually able to notify you very quickly, usually within the 3 days that we've detected a leak within the system. If we tell you, hey, there's a leak, then if you are able to find that leak and get it fixed within 60 days of being notified of that, not only are we going to cut the total volumetric use of that leak in half on your bill, but if you happen to hit an excessive use charge because of that leak, we'll back that off as well. And then we do have a leak repair adjustment program where if you have done that, you've been notified there's a leak, as well as going out and finding that leak and you get it fixed, whether you do it yourself or you hire somebody to do it, we will offer to pay for up to half of that, up to $1,000 to reimburse you for fixing that leak. And as far as I can tell, it's the first of its kind in the country. We really do want that water saved. So we're willing to help cover the cost of getting that leak repaired. And we also have service line protection programs that are out there. Some of the municipalities, I know City of North Las Vegas and City of Las Vegas, they have insurance programs so you can sign up. It's a cost per month on your bill that you pay to those municipalities. They help to pay for the costs associated with repairing those service lines on your property. A service line is from the pipe behind your meter to your home. So on site, that's considered on-site private property, right? And those are usually the most costly to repair. That service line is the largest of all of the lines going on property. And generally speaking, if you get a leak, depending on where it is, it could end up being under a driveway. It could be under some, fancy landscape, who knows what. But generally, those leaks can be a little more higher in volume. And those are the ones that are a little more expensive to repair. So those warranty programs are really, really valuable. The Las Vegas Valley Water District will also be offering, in a partnership with American Water Resources, a service line warranty program, and that will be starting at the beginning of 2025. So be looking for some information. If you're a Las Vegas Valley Water District customer, you'll be seeing some information coming your way about that. And we have some incentives as well that will be coming if you choose to sign up early and prepay for the year. It will be for the first 50,000 people that sign up for it. We will reimburse you that amount of money right back onto your bill, which is great. All of these purveyor members, you definitely want to check with them. City of Henderson, City of North Las Vegas, all of them have different programs. So you want to check with them individually. I think the last thing that I do want to mention is there is definitely a subset of our population who are either on fixed income or senior citizens. They have a leak. Even if they're going to get paid half of it, they say, I don't have the money to even pay it in the first place. And so we have worked with 3 different groups to offer grant money to those groups and those resources. So if we get in touch with a customer in the Las Vegas Valley Water District's jurisdiction that says, I can't afford this, then we refer them to these 3 different entities. They will go ahead and work with them, and they can provide 100% of the repair, up to $7,500 to make those repairs for those customers. And then those customers don't even have to come out of pocket for it at all. So that's a really great program that's offered as well.
Some great programs there that you just listed out, Doa. Make sure that you check with your water provider, whether that's the City of Henderson, North Las Vegas, Boulder City, or the Las Vegas Valley Water District. Look into those programs. They are there to assist customers, especially if you have leaks. They can be costly. They waste a lot of water. Responding to those quickly and utilities helping you to respond to those quickly really helps to improve our conservation and water efficiency as a community. And you can find more details on those programs at all of your water utility websites. Doa Ross, thank you so much for joining us here on the Water Smart Podcast. Thank you so much for sharing this information, especially about water pressure. I think that was a really good one. that we all got a good education on. So thanks so much for joining us here, Doa.
Thank you again for having me. I really appreciate it. And I'm so happy I was able to help you, Crystal, to learn about a water tower. Now you know.
Now I know.
Well, Crystal, another good conversation and a lot of good information shared about our water system. I love it.
Yeah, it's always great listening to Doa talk about all the different infrastructure that we have. And today we got a lot of great information about leaks and all the leak programs that are out there to assist customers with finding and repairing those and paying for them. But I think water pressure wins the day. We got at least I learned a lot about water pressure today.
I know. And I totally geek out on water pressure. It sounds so silly, but once I kind of understood it and understood how our water system operated using the topography of the valley to gravity feed water from higher elevations down to lower elevations, it really made sense to me. And one thing that it reminds me of, like, have you ever been, you've been to the family reunion and you've gone to the igloo cooler in order to get a glass of lemonade, and you go to the little spigot at the bottom, push the button, and when the igloo cooler is full, that water jets out with high pressure. And as the igloo cooler gets a little bit lower and starts to drain down toward the bottom, it starts to have lower pressure. And it is that exact same premise. Wherever you are in the valley, your water pressure depends upon its elevation in relation to that reservoir that serves you. And if you're further away or further downhill from the reservoir itself, that's the higher water pressure, right? That's like the igloo cooler being full. And when you're at a higher elevation closer to the reservoir, that's like the igloo cooler being a little less full. So the water pressure is a little bit lower. But everything within that range meets all of the standards that are associated with public water systems. And some people might even notice a difference in water pressure between like the ground floor of the house and the second floor of the house. So those differences in height are really interesting to me. And I kind of geek out on that and how that relates to water pressure. And I appreciate that you do that too.
Yeah, no, I mean, and it all makes so much sense now. And I'm thinking I grew up here. Like I said, I'm from the Midwest, but I mostly grew up here. So I've lived here for a really long time. Like, I've never questioned why we don't have water towers here. Or I've never correlated with our reservoirs, the equivalents of our reservoirs with what a water tower does and the whole water pressure. So anyway, I feel so enlightened today.
It's really cool. And to that, if you think about that water tower, right? They pump water up the tower. It sits up in that tank up top, and then it gravity feeds down. And as it gravity feeds down, it is then building that water pressure. It's the exact same thing here in the valley, except we use the topography. Well, that's it for this episode here on the Water Smarts Podcast. We hope you subscribe and make sure you listen next time. And if you like the show, feel free to give us a rating. We would certainly appreciate it. And it helps our show reach more Southern Nevadans. And if you would like some more information on conservation, water quality, infrastructure, everything you need to know to be water smart, well, you can find tips, videos, and lots of resources on our website at snwa.com. Thanks for listening, and we hope you join us here next time on Water Smarts.
Attention businesses and HOAs. Break up with your high-maintenance, water-thirsty grass. Nevada law requires the removal of purely decorative grass by the end of 2026. Get cash incentives while they're still available to help pay for your landscape upgrade. Learn more at snwa.com.